It's the truth about parenting.
Something needs to be real for us.
The truth is in the raw things that people don't talk about. This journey is not for the weak. Welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Yeah, welcome to the Mama Jack. So tell us your story.
The story begins long ago. I opened a preschool when I was 21 years old. I was the youngest owner in Las Vegas at the time. And my journey has always been about children. I love children. I love everything about children. I think they're the greatest teachers on this planet, literally. And so I had that school for nearly a decade and I got real tired. I was exhausted. Uh, I ended up having a client that was trading me out massages for uh, her tuition because she couldn't afford tuition and she was going to massage school. And I realized very quickly that her massage was $100 for an hour. And at the time, this is 1995, I was charging $120 for 50 hours of taking care of your child.
Oh
So Monday through Friday from 6 in the morning till 6 at night in a daycare preschool.
my God.
So I had this a moment where I was like, I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing children. I'm tired of nap time, you know, reading time, art time, all the times. And I just wanted to be quiet. So I went to massage school. I sold my preschool, went to massage school, and then opened a wellness center after that. And consequently, all of those families came over, and now the parents were getting help instead of necessarily the children. So had that for
I
a
love
few
that.
years. And then fast forward, my husband and I, we had a lot of infertility problems. We ended up losing five babies, three miscarriages, two sets of twins. And so I just kind of said to him, I'm done. I'm done. Like I'm not doing the whole thing anymore. And it was too much mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of it. And so I said, we need to make a decision. Are we going to adopt or are we going to just live our lives with no children? I don't know, friends' kids,
Mhm.
live vicariously through them, which we had done for many years. We had foster kids in our home as well. So over time, we kept going back and forth with this, and then my husband and I finally decided to adopt, and we ended up with an international adoption, simply because in the state of California where we lived at the time, when you adopted, most of the time they wanted open adoptions, and we weren't really interested in adopting a family. We were interested in adopting a child. And
Yeah.
on top of that, in the state of California, they had a 90-day right to rescission. So the mother could come back at any time from 0 to 90 days and take your baby and be done. And they even in the adoption process suggested to us, we don't even suggest like a baby shower until after those 90 days. I'm like, no. After losing
Oh,
all
that's
those
so
babies,
sweet.
yeah, I
Right?
was like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
not about to
Yes.
hold the baby and then you come and take him. And we even had a friend that on the 89th day, the mom that was severely impaired, she was addicted to drugs, showed up at her doorstep and took her baby. And so that just wasn't an option for me. That just was not on the table. And I told my husband that I said, nope. And even after that, if somebody came out of the woodworks as far as a grandma, a grandpa, an aunt, or uncle that didn't know that this child was up for adoption, even up until 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they could fight for that child in court. So that was just not an option for us. So we ended up going international, and all the stars aligned for us for that to happen. We ended up meeting somebody. My husband's estranged, half sister adopted from the same country we adopted from. So everybody was it was kind of like these divine signs, right? Like that this is where we're supposed to go, this is what we're supposed to do. And so consequently, we ended up adopting our son. It took about a year and a half, and it was torturous, and way more money than they ever said, like 3 times the amount of money they said it would be. So we literally
Yeah.
mortgaged our house. We did everything, to get this child home. And as we got him home, they described that any child in an orphanage is about 3 months behind your average child, right? So for every month that they're in the orphanage, they're 3 months behind. So up until he was a little bit older, we didn't realize the extent of some of the things that he was dealing with, and he has quite a few brain injuries. And I don't really go into those specifics, just because later on down the road, when a miracle happens for us, I don't want him looking back on these podcasts and going, "Why did you say all that stuff about me?" Like to the whole entire world.
Yeah.
So we look
Yeah.
at, there are some severe brain injuries, and we explain it to him as the brain is like a broken bone and it can heal. Now, the brain takes a lot longer. And so that's how we've explained his situation to him, because it's really confusing for him. He doesn't quite understand everything about it. His processing power is a little bit slower, a lot slower. And so we really, and I do believe in brain plasticity. I've done, this child has really made me really dive deep into the brain. And I also believe in miracles. I believe in there's a lot of new technology that's coming out that is helping these kids. So I will never say that he is limited. He is unlimited. It's just I have to find those tools to help him unlock that unlimited space in his brain. So that's kind of where we're at now. He's moving into teenagehood, which is oh, whole nother world. So that has been a gift that keeps giving. That's what I call it. It's the gift that keeps giving. And to my point earlier is that I really do believe our kids are the greatest teachers on our planet. And I often ask myself, like, God, you know, I, they say you don't give what you can't handle, but I think you might have got this one wrong sometimes. And yet here I
Mhm.
am, right? And
Y
I've had 30 years of experience. I've worked with over 30,000 kids, and this kid has brought me to my knees, like literally. I have had to work so hard at this, and it has also given me a compassion for moms across the world that I always used to say, like, I wrote this book, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too. I co-authored it with my friend Taryn Boget. She is the Everyday Genius Institute, and she had asked me a couple of questions of like, what do you say when your kid does this, or what do you do when your kid does that? And I'm like, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, it's this. Because when you've had experience for 30 years and 30,000 kids, you kind of figure out what works. Except for
Yeah.
the ones that are coming onto this planet that have all these neurodivergent things where I'm like, "Whoa, this is a whole different ball game." It's night and day. And so initially when we wrote
Yeah.
the book, she's like, "Oh, this works for every kid." And I was like, "Well, it's worked for every kid I've worked with." And then I'm like, "Oh, well, you know, the principles are good, but you do have to change some of your strategies with neurodivergent kids." And I always thought with parents, like, if you just do this, in my naiveness, remember, I started my school at 21. So I was incredibly naive and really dumb. Like, so, and I didn't have children at the time. So that was a whole, and even fostering kids is very different than your own quote unquote child. And nobody could convince me of that until I had my own quote unquote child, because all of my baggage started coming out, my husband's
Mhm.
baggage. And I'm like, this is a lot of baggage for me to even, deconstruct and unpack, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have a much stronger compassion for women and especially those that have neurodivergent kids that don't have support systems. We don't have support systems. I have a couple of really good friends but we've gone through school after school. We don't have grandparents to help support us with some respite. So and even without neurodivergent, honestly, the the compassion I have for the mothers on the planet now that is overwhelming to me because and I've said this 1,000 times. I want to go back and punch those women that said we could do everything. I'm like, I don't know what you were thinking, but
Yeah.
fun. like, you know? I mean, working and then, cooking, cleaning, making sure they're taken care of. I do all the bills in our family, and there are times when I look at my husband and I say, "You just work. That's all you do." you know? And he's like, "Yeah, but my job." I'm like,
Yes.
"No, you work. That's it." So I have
Mhm.
compassion and really truly we're told put your oxygen mask on first, like do all these things for yourself first. But a pedicure doesn't fix this. Like,
Yeah.
I need time away from you people. like, it's more than a pedicure. It's more than a movie. It's more than a cup of tea with my friend. Like, we need more than that. And so I kind of feel really passionate about that if you haven't been able to tell that part.
I mean, I feel the same. My daughter has a very rare genetic disorder, and just even the process of finding out, she was 6 months old. So, like, you find a 6-month-old baby, it's like, you don't know anything. And so it's like, oh my gosh, you go into the what ifs. You see the list of things that could happen, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to think that this is going to happen, but this is what we're dealing with right now. And because it's so rare, there's not a lot out there on it. And it's funny because going into another episode that's coming soon is the one of the researchers on her disease. It's called Sifram Hitzweiss or disorder. Sorry, not disease. Um, she's coming on my show, and I am over the moon about it because we have a group on Facebook for all the parents that have had this genetic condition come back. And we are kind of like piecing together, the puzzle because just talking about our kids and what they're doing and what kind of therapies they're in and how they're growing and if they're eating on time and anything, right? She's 2 now. So we're seeing a little more, but she's still 2. So like anything could be like average and level out or it could stay the same. So it's like, it's maddening when it comes to stuff like that. And then my son, who as a typical child, right? He's in speech, he's in OT, he's in PT, and he's probably going to start play therapy soon. So it's like, damn, you
It's
know,
it's
damn.
exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it is. And I keep up with all of it. I keep up with all the appointments. I talk to everybody. My husband, he work he's either gone or here. He's a first AC on set. So he's like, he'll have 14-hour days or he'll leave sometimes or he's here for a week or 2 weeks. So when he is here, he is very involved, but still, it's so much to have on your plate, like all the time. And then the constant worry about their future. Are they ever going to be able to live on their own? And you don't want to put like as a spiritual person, like the energy you put out is kind of what you're receiving. So you think about this and then you're like, no, intrusive thought, get it out of there. Cause like, I don't want to think that way because I feel like then, oh my God, am I manifesting this? Like, I can't manifest this for my baby. But it's like, you can't help but think about these things. And I just look at mothers that have kids that don't go through any of this. And I'm just like, what is that like? Just like, and you know, it's funny you say that, you know, the universe doesn't put anything on you that you can't handle. And yes, I agree with that to a certain extent. But it's like, yeah, it's exhausting. It's a lot to
Yeah.
hold. It really is. And then you're like, okay, well, you know, the universe is all about balance. So I've been doing a lot of work. So what's coming over here now?
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
What do I get to accept? Like they're beautiful. Any baby with any like disorder, I consider to be a beautiful being, right? They are like, especially when it comes to like, you know, all the
Mhm.
neurodivergent things. I mean, what there's like a million things we could name off. Not a million things, but you know. And then the scale is like, okay, well, where are they on the scale? Well, you don't know if they're at the bottom and you can barely tell, or if they're way at the top and they're never gonna live life that is solo. You know, they'll need help the rest of their life. And they're
Yeah.
special. And they're here to teach us something very special.
Very.
And if it was, you know, like in your case, if I don't know exactly what it was caused by, but if it was even something that could have been prevented, it's still they're such a blessing to society. And I believe that people that have these quote differences, the atypical crowd, there's a reason they're like that. They're here for a special reason, and it is beautiful. But as parents, it really puts a lot on us.
Yeah.
It really
I
does.
mean, some of the groups that I'm in, and I just said this recently. I was at a group, and it's a kind of educational group, where you have a bunch of the parents that come in. And honest to God, the one mom had cancer. The other mom, she looked like she was 80 years old and she's 40. The other mom was so stressed out. And I just sat there and I was like, wow, this is a lot. And they are actually predicting that there will be more neurodivergent kids by 2035 than neurotypical. That's only 10 years away. And so we have to kind of prepare for this space for all of us too, to be able to, that's why I say I love our book. It does have principles that go across all neurodivergent and neurotypical. It goes across the board. With that being said, there is an innate wisdom in each and every one of us as mothers, as fathers, as parents on this planet, that you know what you know, what you know. And
Mhm,
nobody can talk me out of that. There is one doctor in particular that wants to put our child on pharmaceuticals. I don't have any judgment with that with people, but the pharmaceuticals that they're trying to put my child on are antipsychotic and narcotics. And my child is 12. His brain has problems to begin with. And I'm not going to
mhm,
top that on top of it. And with that being said, I've done a lot of research and I've talked to a lot of moms in Facebook groups that have done certain things that they are asking me as doctors to do. And they said, don't do it. Now, to each his own. Everybody has what they need to do. And I believe that your gut will guide you. I do believe that there are pharmaceuticals that can help you. I'm not the person. I used to own a wellness center, and we had Japanese acupuncture in there. Believe wholeheartedly in Japanese acupuncture. But if my arm's cut off, I'm going to the hospital. Like, you know,
yeah.
I'm not going to have her stick some needles in and hope it stops bleeding. So I
Mhm,
do believe there's space for everybody, right, in this arena. But with that being said, I think that we as moms in particular, I can't speak for dads because I'm not a dad, but we as moms in particular need to trust that gut, trust that. I used to have a company called WiseInside because there's a wisdom within. And that gut has told me over and over again, Heather, don't you dare put him on those medications. Don't you do it. No matter how desperate you get, no matter how much the behaviors are spiraling, no matter how much teenagerhood is coming in with those behaviors and now causing a whole lot of ruckus, you know, don't do it. And I can say that today. Now, if my gut said, there might be something else out there, start researching. And I find something else that may work, that might change too. But the only thing we have is that internal guidance system. That's the only thing we have anymore. And more
Mhm.
our society, humanity is evolving with AI. We are going to get to the point where you can't trust anything you see anymore. Like, there's some videos that are popping up and they're like, oh, you think this house is on fire and this person's burning and this is that? Oh, nope, it doesn't exist. That's not the thing. I think Will Smith did one and it was like, oh, you think this is real? Oh, but you think this is real? And they all looked really real, right? And so I think that if we can start trusting that gut feeling, that feeling where you're like, I just don't think that's right. Like, you know, and also too, when you think something is really right in your mind, but everything else, there was this therapy that we they were just set on that he needed. He needs this therapy. It's 15 hours a week. This therapy is $1,500 a week without insurance. Our insurance says, no, we don't cover it, of course. So, so $6,000 a month
Yeah.
for this therapy. And, I'm looking at my husband and he's like, we can't right now. Like, that's just not an option. We
Yeah.
can't. And I'm like, so I start like asking and I'm appealing to the insurance. I'm talking to behavioral specialists. I'm talking to nurses. I'm talking to social workers, talking to everybody. And it's just not going through. And what I sat down in my meditation. I was like, why is this not working? This therapy will help him. And all I heard was, sometimes you think it'll help, but we're actually making sure that he doesn't do that therapy. Now, who the we is, I don't know. But what I will say is that everything was going against this therapy. I have tried
Yeah.
every avenue. And so at some point in time, I have to let go as a mom of what I think is best for him and go back to my gut of, it's obviously not working out for a reason. I have exhausted every avenue. I mean, even loans,
Yeah.
you name it. If you have a kid with any kind of problems, quote unquote, every parent will dig themselves into a grave to make sure they get everything they need. Like, so financially and sometimes physically, and it's hard, but also to be able to let go of that desire for myself of, this is what I think is best for him, but maybe it's not. Like, maybe take a step back and go, okay, maybe it's another therapy. I'm open to it. Show me the way. Show me the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting fact too about the neurodivergent kids and how there's gonna be more. I could really go into another talk about that.
No, truly. And, we're not ready for that
Yeah.
as a society. We're not ready. Our
Mm.
schools are not ready for that. Our schools are not equipped for that. You know, with our son, we've had to have private schools, private teachers, all the things because they're not equipped to handle our child. And our child is not on the spectrum end of like the worst, quote unquote, but like he needs additional support. And um our schools aren't ready for this. Our teachers aren't ready for this. They're not trained for this. Like,
Yeah.
there's just, and we have layers too, right? So the other layer, the elephant in the room, is that our children were isolated for COVID for 3 years, and some of those in the most prime years possible to learn, to grow, to expand, to evolve, to understand this
Mhm.
world, they didn't get. They they had this the whole time. They don't understand facial expressions. They can't understand words. Speech therapy has gone skyrocketed. Like, intellectual actual intellectual problems have increased by 25% since COVID. Like, they're across the board, we've
Okay.
had serious problems, and they're not equipped for this. They're not equipped for it now. And then you fast forward to 2035, which I personally think it's going to be before 2035, because I have the privilege of knowing what neurotypical kids looked like 30 years ago and working with them for 70 hours a week. You know, when you're around
Yeah.
kids for 70 hours a week, which is what I was working with my school, you learn real quick what they do, how they do it, when they do it,
Yeah.
but it's not like that now. It's not like that at all. And there's not a lot of skilled teachers in this space for neurodivergence, right? So it looks like a behavioral problem. It looks like ADHD. It looks like, you
Yeah.
know, pandas, oppositional defiance disorder, all the things, right? It looks like all of that. But really, it's just that we don't have these skill sets and we're using these antiquated skills like timeout that don't work, or take something away, take the pizza party away from the classroom. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares about pizza parties anymore. Like, they have iPhones. They don't care about pizza parties. Right? You know?
Yeah.
So we haven't really evolved in that space. And, I actually am developing a product right now. It's in beta testing in schools right now. It's called the Conversation Station. And it's a space for kids to be able to go sit quietly and have a conversation with themselves, conversation with each other, or with a teacher. And it gives them the tools to help them, because our kids don't know how to have conversations. And with the technology we have coming down the pipeline, it's not helping, right?
Yeah.
It's not helping. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, so I have a godson that's 18 years old that he's like, I'm gonna break up with my girlfriend. I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. He's like, yeah. And he goes to text her. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm gonna text her. I said, text her what? And he's like, breaking up with you. I go, oh, no, friend. No, no. You're going to call her, or you're going to see her in person, and you're going to say, hey, this isn't working out. Like, you're cool. I'm cool. Like, it's just not a thing. Appreciate the time we've had together, and I wish you the best in your cool kind of way. But you give that
Yeah.
person the common courtesy of having a conversation with them, not ghosting
Yeah.
them, not saying, "I'm breaking up, okay?" Like, no,
Mhm.
no. We deserve, as humans, the ability to have a conversation with each other and understand each other and really feel that moment of like, "Oh, yeah, he's not a jerk. It's just, like, not working out. We don't have fun together. It's cool. Move
Yeah.
on with your life," you know? So, there's a lot of unpacking there. There's lots to talk about in that
Yeah.
space for sure. I get on a soapbox
Yeah.
and I don't stop.
And I love it. I love it. Mama Jack podcast has your soapbox sitting right in the middle of it.
Yay,
It's fine.
that's awesome.
Okay, so do you have anything else that you want to share about your experiences?
Well, I mean, I will say that, when you talked about that, looking at other families with neurotypical kids, I think that that's actually such a beautiful conversation. There is a woman on uh, Instagram, and it's called On the Hard Days, and she's all about neurodiverse kids. And she says she has these what neurodivergent moms want to say but can't say. And it's really beautiful because it
Mhm.
was exactly one of those just recently was exactly that. Like, I'm really jealous of the life you have and the kids that you have, not necessarily the kid in particular, obviously, but the experience, right? And so, like, a lot of
Mhm.
my friends that have been my friends for years and that my son has grown up with, their kids are now starting to surpass him emotionally, mentally. cognitively. And so it was all fun and games when he was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you know? And even as an
Mhm.
8-year-old, he could still fit in with the 4-year-old somewhat, you know? But now as a 12-year-old, there's a real gap. And like his 8, 9, 10-year-old friends are starting to surpass him. And there's these moments where as a mom, I think to myself, I'm so sad. I'm just genuinely sad because, you know, while I didn't want I'm not the kind of mom that says you're gonna go to college, you're gonna do this. But eventually, to your point of will he be able to live on his own? Time will tell. If it was up to the doctor's
Mhm.
diagnosis, it would be a no. Is he gonna be able to drive? The doctors would say no. And so having those conversations with doctors and then having the conversation with yourself and then also seeing your friend that your child has grown up with these kids and now they're driving, they're dating, they're going to college, all of these things. I think it's something very
Mhm.
valuable to uh, explore for ourselves of and I'm still in that space because there are days when I'm I wouldn't trade this for all the money in the world. I've learned so much. I've grown so much. He is such a bright light on this planet. It's odd when he walks into a room, people are just like, oh, oh, and want to give him things. And, it's magical, quite frankly. And with that being said, there are lots of days where I'm like, I'm driving and he's like, well, mom, when I get to drive, and I'm like, and I just had this moment, sure, buddy, where I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And, planning for us in the future of do we need to buy a house with a casita, because this is probably what we're going to have to do. Like all of these conversations are taking place on a daily basis. And again, this is where I think as moms, we need to show up for each other and to shine the light for each other and not trying to convince somebody, oh, because it's different when my friend goes, well, he'll drive, of course, he'll grow out of this, he'll grow out of this. And I'm like, yeah, you're not quite sure about the diagnosis here. And not again to hold that space that
Yeah.
it's not possible. It's also important for me to hold on to some form of reality in moments where I go, it's okay if he doesn't drive. It's okay if he doesn't live on his own. It's okay if he
Mhm.
doesn't do something, right? And to also start looking at different alternatives because I want him to have the experience of working. So, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I have built 5 businesses now. And one of the businesses I want to build is called the Conversation Academy. It's a nonprofit. I already have the nonprofit for it. But it's a place where people can learn to come and have conversations with themselves, with each other, with the world, blah, blah, blah. And he wants to run the front desk of the Conversation Academy. His dad talked about retiring at some point in time and opening a dog grooming place that he could help groom the dogs. He could help run the store, something that he can do and feel really good about, and also earn an income, because
Yeah.
I don't plan on supporting him forever. like, you know,
Yeah.
so those are the kind of conversations. And that's where, for me in particular, one of the things that I love to talk about are conversations and why I love doing podcasts because the conversations, right? Um, because you learn so much from each other and you learn so much about yourself when you're just talking from pure authenticity for who you are and what you're doing. And, you know, I think taking the time to have these conversations with ourselves and each other changes everything. And I would offer to anybody that is helping a friend in this space to not say necessarily they'll grow out of it or it's okay. He's a really great kid. It's just he's a teenager, all those things. And just saying, man, I don't know what you're going through right now, but know this I am by your side. I got you. I got you every step of the
I'm proud of you. It would be nice to hear, I'm proud of
Yes.
you. You're doing, yeah, a great job. Oh my goodness. You are just pulling at my heartstrings right now. And I feel like I'm dealing with smaller children, right? But everything you've said, I've thought of, you know, and I feel it. I totally feel it. And it's not something that you ever think is going to particularly like happen to you. And I hate saying happen to you because that kind of makes it seem bad, but it's not bad. It's a beautiful thing. And like I said, I really do think these kids are here to change the world, and we can talk about that in another podcast, I'm sure. But I truly, in the bottom of my heart, know they're here to change the world. And you saying that there's going to be more neurodivergent kids and the statistics behind that, because you seem like a person that researches and knows all of her stuff. See, I just get the information, right? um, that makes me even more excited. And I hope we can adapt to that. But I feel like neurodivergent kids are just our future. And it's not like atypical. You know what I mean? It's not. It's a gift. Like it truly is a gift, and it's just a different way of life. And that's what makes it so beautiful. The differences that they have from other kids. It's like, yes, of course, like as parents, like I get tired of all the freaking therapies and this, and they're not progressing, and this is happening. And, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like those thoughts, we haven't gotten as far yet to think about like what exactly we would do with our daughter if she couldn't live on her own because she's two. But those thoughts are still running through my
Yep.
head. It's like, you can't stop it. So it's like finding people that are thinking alike. Like I feel so blessed and happy to have found you because it I feel like I understand and I can be heard and truly understood
Yep.
because, you know, it's really hard to describe the exact emotions that go through your head when you start to come to terms with certain things about your child. But yeah, I will definitely be talking about why neurodivergent kids are an incredible step for humanity, but that will be on my spiritual podcast because I feel like that's the realm it's in. I keep dropping the seeds to my spiritual podcast and this one, and I'm telling you, like, it's going to be a great thing for us, but there will be adjustment, and it's not easy to adjust. We've found that out through the past couple. I feel like there's been so many adjustments in the world in the past, like, oh my God, since, I mean, I don't know if you're a millennial, but it's like, damn, millennials have been through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Like Gen Xer, a lot of shit. Like we've seen a lot of stuff that the generations before us saw maybe one thing like that in their entire life up until we came, and it was like, oh, one thing after another, like this, that, go to college. Oh, wait, after you're done with college, there's no jobs. So we're in a recession.
Yeah. This
And then
is the
it's
worst
like, oh,
returns on investment right now. Like,
yeah, and then everybody's stuck in the pit of debt. And then it's like, okay, we're getting out. We're working, we're doing everything. Bam, pandemic. And then it's like, well, what do we do now? And but the one thing that we're good at is
yep.
pivoting and learning things.
My favorite
And
friend.
that is going to go, right? That's going to go with our kids.
Yes.
They'll be able to do stuff like that. And just, I know in my heart, your son is just this beautiful being on the planet. And I just want you to know through me, like, I hear you and I feel you. And I might not be as far along on this path as you are, but my heart, my heart feels you. It truly does.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, like, it's a journey, and I will tell you, I do believe in the higher experience of all of this. I will tell you, with our son in particular, we had another child that was dialed in, and they literally called us and said he was adopted out. And it was unexpected. He was not supposed to be adopted out. And we were on a plane to go meet this child across the world, literally. And then they called us back 30 minutes later and say, "We have another boy for you," and get on a plane, right? We had to get visas, all the things, immediate visas. And what I will tell you is that our explanation to our son, because again, we have to explain things on a little bit different level, but our explanation to him was, "You were across the world and you were born and you looked around, you go, this isn't where I belong. I know I don't belong here. And you called out and said, 'Mom, Dad, where are you? Where are you?' And we heard you across the world. And we got on a plane and we came and got you. You were just born in the wrong place, but you weren't born to the wrong people. Like, we were there. And I know that there is a divineness to our experience with this child and my experience in particular. And I haven't wrapped my head around 100% how to share it in the world because, again, there are pieces of me that say, some things need to remain private for his future, because
Yeah.
while, again, doctors say that that's a dismal um, space, I do not necessarily agree. And I will hold space for that experience, however it looks. I'm not looking at the outcome, I'm looking at just the journey through. But I will tell you that he came to us very specifically. And I think each and every one of our kids come to us very specifically. And I think in particular, those of us that have a public voice are here to help the other people that can't speak out or can't get on a podcast and talk about it or are too embarrassed or ashamed that their kid is behaving a certain way when all the other kids aren't doing it, or you're that mom that doesn't get invited to the birthday party. We've been that mom. I've been that mom. We didn't get invited, and it's hurtful. And yet there are moments where I go, we weren't supposed to be at that birthday party then. So be it. That's how it works. And I think just being there for each other to be able to hear those stories and be able to feel each other in that space and know that you're not alone. Because at the end of the day, I think we all are handling this very well. All of us.
Yeah.
All of us are handling this very well. And it can also feel very isolating and very alone. And that's where I think that we as women can step up for each other and start being just a space to be with each other. And I also think that we as moms in this space also need to be conscious that we're not bombarding our friends with the story every single day because
Yeah.
it's not fair to them either. Like, they don't want to hear that story every day. So I think that
Yeah.
it's really important for us to both be aware of the how we have the conversations with each other to support each other in their space. I have one friend in particular, and we always go, "Well, it's your kid," and it's always about her dating a guy. So, like, that's our thing, where she'll be like, "I went like, all right, you got
Right.
10 minutes to talk about dating this guy," like, and she'll be like, "Okay, 10 minutes for the kid, and then we're done, right?" But we have those spaces for each other because and
Okay.
if it's not your kid, it's gonna be your work that you're complaining about. We all have to vent in some
Yeah.
capacity. It's just be mindful of that timing because I think that that's where moms in our space start pushing people away because we find somebody that'll listen, and then we just more because that isolated feeling, and then it pushes them away. So just be mindful of our energy in that space too, that, hey, can I just talk to you for a couple of minutes about this just to get it off my chest? Hey, can I just say what a ridiculous shit show this was today? Like, please, can I just
Yeah.
5 minutes to say that I've been to 4 therapies in one day, and now we're in meltdown, like complete meltdown mode,
Yeah.
and have those moments and say, okay, I feel better. And for our
Mhm.
friends, like my one good friend, I was in tears and she called me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm just not okay." And she's like, "That's it." And she called my husband and said, "You need to come home early." She came, she met me on the corner, picked me up like a hitchhiker, and took me to dinner. And she's like, and we had the best time. And she goes, "We're not going to talk about the kid. That we're not talking about the kid. We're going to talk about what we love. We love business. We want to explore." And we both created 2 new projects at that dinner that are very successful because we set it down. She came and got me. She goes, "We're not talking about the kid. It's too stressful. You're not in a good space for it. Let's talk about things we love." It doesn't mean that he's not important. It doesn't mean that you don't need to be heard. But in this moment, you're so in crisis. We need to see something different. We need to be reminded that the life is still going on outside of your experience with your kid. You still have a life. You
Yeah.
still have a purpose. Your kid
Yeah.
is not the whole pie. It's not the whole pie, and anybody that makes their kid the whole pie generally has a problem with some sort of purpose filled moments when they leave. So,
Yeah.
that's what they call empty nesters, is like, I've put all of my energy into you. So I still feel that you're a huge piece of my pie, but you're not the whole pie. There's other pieces of
Mhm.
me. And I lost those pieces. And she took me out that night and reminded me of them. That's what we need to do for each other. We need to show up. And she was tired. She was tired from working. It was the middle of her work week. She owns a school. She has a micro school. So she has kids all day. The last thing she wants to do is come pick me up and take me to dinner. But she did it to support me and help me. And it's a night I'll never forget. I'll never forget. I'll never forget how thankful I was for her and all of the women that have showed up in my life. I mean, you showing up in my life, that I'm like, oh, I'm heard. I'm not alone. We have similar beliefs. We could share this with the world, like all the things, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's powerful when we unite. It's powerful, powerful when we unite. And I've been really blessed to have beautiful people that remind me of that along the way. And I'm so thankful to have you in that space too now.
Right. Well, you have to know you attract what you put out. So that is all you. Just remind yourself you're that beautiful person.
Yes.
So that's why they come to you.
Yes.
That's such a beautiful story. I love that story. What a great friend.
Great friend.
Oh my
Great
God.
friend. And we have moments where we
Right.
can't stand each other too, like
Yeah, of course.
there are moments where I'm like, I am so done with you. Just go. Just go. Go away from me. Like, and her to me too. But she's also started making sourdough. And so last week she invited me over because this whole sourdough craze. So she invited me over to make sourdough. And we were laughing. And I forgot. I forgot that I'm Jake's mom. I forgot for a minute. And even he was there. He was there with her kids playing, but I forgot that I was Jake's mom. I was her friend, and we were having fun. And we were talking, and then in between, like rolling the dough, and then you have to pull and all these things, we'd sit down and we'd talk about business because that's what we both love. We love business. And I'd be like, you got to do this. And then we'd start laughing, and then we go back and do what we had to do. And the bread that we made was the best bread that was ever made, honestly. And it wasn't because of the ingredients, it was because of all the love that was in that bubble of existence. The love I had for her, the love she had for me, the laughter, the fun. And it was just sourdough bread. Like, it wasn't life changing, but it was life changing. So, having those moments that we can connect with each other and remember who we are as women before we were moms, before we were wives, before we were even friends, we were a girl born on this planet to do magical things. And we forget along the way. And I think it's really important to remember that piece of us because when we have that piece, when I had that sourdough moment, my problems were set down. My anger was set down. My jealousy was set down. Everything was set down for a minute. It's not gone, but it's set in the corner of the house, you know? It's set in my mind off to the side, on the back burner, however you want to call it. And it's still there, but it's not front. It's not front. And when we give ourselves those spaces, we can get through the hard things. Like, because all I do is I say, I think I'm going to make some sourdough bread now. And there's something very
Yeah.
cathartic to kneading bread. I don't know what it is, but
Oh,
very cathartic. I don't know. I don't know. I'm making some today. Actually, it's proofing right now. So
nice.
if you
Nice.
ever would have told me I would be
Nice.
baking sourdough bread, I would have been like, you are crazy. But here
Yeah.
we are. Everything can change.
Yeah. It can. It
I say
can in an
all the
instant.
time.
That's for
It's
sure.
one conversation that can change your life. One conversation. One conversation. One conversation you and I had online can change my life, can change your life. One conversation about sourdough bread can change your life. It's the smallest things and the biggest things, but our conversations change everything. They change everything.
I love that. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for
It was
having this
great.
platform.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Like, I know that
Wow.
it is helping so many moms and dads and families out there. Like, I know it. I know it in my heart. I just know it. So I'm thankful to be a part of it and thankful to be on it and invited by you to come. I really appreciate it. And it's also made me remember again that I'm more than just his mom. Like, like I love talking. I love being in this space. I love doing these conversations. They matter. They change lives. So thank you for hosting it and creating this space.
Welcome to the end of another episode of the Mama Jack Real Raw Parenting Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember, parenting is a journey filled with ups and downs, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way. The Mama Jack Podcast is here to provide you with support, guidance, and real life stories from fellow parents who are navigating the challenges of raising children. If you have any questions, topics you'd like me to cover, or stories you'd like to share, please reach out to me. I love hearing from my listeners and incorporating your experiences into future episodes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Podpage, all under the Mama Jack, TheMamaJac. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and together we can create a supportive community of real, raw parents. Stay tuned for more episodes filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Until next time, keep being the amazing parent that you are.